So good, so good, so good.
New summer arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off brands like Rag & Bone, Levi's, Adidas, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Pandora Jewelry brings the sparkle to your summer, now with even better prices. Enjoy up to 50% off select styles, from personalized pieces to must-have favorites made for the summer. Timeless designs that shine with you through every moment, wherever the summer takes you. Shop in-store or online, now through July 6. Terms and conditions apply. Visit Pandora.net for details. Plan B is a backup birth control option that's there for you when things don't go according to plan. It specifically works after unprotected sex and before pregnancy occurs by temporarily delaying ovulation. Plan B is available nationwide at all major retailers and through delivery apps like DoorDash. No ID, prescription, or age requirement. It's the #1 OBGYN recommended brand of emergency contraception, and it won't impact your future fertility. That's freedom to be. Use as directed.
Welcome back to Tragic Hollywood. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige.
When people talk about tragic celebrity deaths, certain names immediately come to mind. You have Heath Ledger, River Phoenix, Amy Winehouse, which two of those we've covered on Tragic Hollywood. But there are few names that hit as hard in terms of losses like Cory Monteith for us millennials. He really was such a big part of our cultural zeitgeist. Maybe it's because he wasn't a tabloid fixture in the sense of he was getting into fights, having outrageous public behavior. He really seemed to be this talented guy that had his stuff together, his life together. And that's rare in the industry. And I don't know, to a lot of fans, he was Finn Hudson, the lovable quarterback at the heart of the Glee show. And to this day, that's how a lot of us still remember him.
His death definitely hit hard for millennials. I'm also seeing on TikTok a lot of Gen Z rewatching Glee, recreating skits and scenes related to Glee. I talked about this on our episode of DocuFiles last week where we covered the price of Glee, which is different than Cory Monteith in and of his 6 feet, 4 inches of handsomeness and dimples. But I think that it must have really hit their generation as children as well. Now, we are similar ages to the actors and kind of we're growing up with them. Yeah, Gen Z seems to have latched on too. So you love to see it. And Cory's name is still out there because of this phenomena of a show. You can hear more about the show side of everything on that episode of DocuFiles, because on this episode, we really are going to talk about this life that was lost at barely 31 years old in 2013 after finally hitting success. Now, Cory was born May 11th, 1982 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and had a pretty decent, normal childhood. His parents did divorce when he was around 7. And after that, it was a little bit touch and go. There were some rough patches for him. He did act out a little bit. And I think it was more as he acted out as a child, what seemed to be living out a certain stereotype he thought he had to be, especially in order to be cool. That's kind of sad to me because this acting out did lead to early addiction. At 15 years old, Cory was using, as he put it himself, anything and everything. But it seems as though the main kind of drugs of choice were alcohol and heroin, which did both lead to his demise 16 years later.
Somewhere in the midst of his early addiction, he started, like you said, getting into trouble. He was stealing money from friends and family, and they did have to have their own intervention. While he was attempting to get on this path to be straight and narrow, he was told by a friend, or they suggested that he look into acting. There was somebody in the area who had an acting school, and they thought that that may be a place that Cory could really channel any of his talents, his skills that were not being utilized while being under the influence. That's where he realized he had a love for acting and a big talent for it too. A lot of people were surprised, and I think Cory among them.
One of his acting coaches and I believe his agent, when they connected, it was like, this is in the early aughts. Like, have you met Cory Monteith? Yeah, I have. And do you think he's going to be a star the way that I think he's going to be a star? And she's like, yeah, I do. So this talent that he so often doubted in himself, by the way, really was pouring out of him. And it was more of a raw talent. When it comes to landing Glee, he wasn't a dancer. He wasn't a singer, which I think he did hold his own for the show. But his primary talent, and that he tapped into this for the role in Glee when he did his audition tape, was drumming. He was a musician, as it was put. And for this video, he brilliantly, because this feels like Finn. Finn was this quarterback that did love music and then found himself as part of this Glee group, this Glee club. He took a bunch of Tupperware because he didn't have a drum set at the time. And he just is like vivaciously drumming, just so raw, so just, hey, here's the background of my like crappy apartment, just drumming away on Tupperware.
And he sang some cheesy 1980s song that just, it painted a full picture of like, this is who Finn Hudson's supposed to be.
They saw him in that tape, you know it.
Yes. That's something that we talked about in our coverage of The Price of Glee. And, we're not going to repeat everything we said, but this bears repeating. A lot of the characters were based off of the traits that the actors possess. So when Ryan Murphy, the show's creator, saw Cory Monteith drumming on Tupperware and singing this cheesy 80s song, he thought, okay, this is something I can infuse into this Finn Hudson character. That's who I need to bring this character to life.
Now, Glee was made a lot with like Lea Michele in mind and Jonathan Groff in mind, who unfortunately Jonathan Groff couldn't do it on the onset, but he did end up being part of it. And that is such a stark difference to bringing Cory on, somebody who was a bit green, not super seasoned in even the acting space. By that point, he had some previous roles, but it is so interesting and cool to see just what Cory was bringing from his own self to Glee, as opposed to what he'd already brought previously that they wanted.
It really worked out for the best. I am a huge Jonathan Groff fan. I would love to see him in everything and anything. But I think the fact that it didn't work out with him as the center of the Glee story alongside Lea Michele's Rachel Berry, it worked out for the best because we got this fish out of water Finn Hudson character who is this strapping football player who gets thrust into this Glee club world. That's how we're introduced to all the cast of misfits. I can't imagine it any other way. He was really somebody that everyone wanted to root for. And that's what you needed at the center of the show.
I mean, he brought his own. Let's be real. At least here in the US, which that was a US show, we had no idea who he was. So to break out and bring so much on your own, I think also just speaks to like the talent and the realness that he brought to Finn. And he wasn't one-dimensional. I mean, his other roles, which again, there are a ton of, were very different than Finn. And one of those roles that was such a stark difference than Finn was his role in Mechanic, which came after Glee. And everyone's so used to seeing this clean-cut Finn. That's who they thought Cory was. There's this interview about Mechanic with Cory, and the interviewer is kind of giggling, going, oh, Cory, like, this is so different than what we're used to seeing you as. And I can't help but imagine him screaming on the inside, like, you have no idea about some of the darkness of my past and what I've been through, because actually this role is of a heroin addict. I know a lot about that. And I don't think he got to say that because of who his team wanted him to continue to portray. And a lot of us didn't know about this side of him until his death.
He did go on a few interviews in 2011, so 2 years prior to his death, where he did discuss his prior addiction. But I don't think we really understood the depths of that addiction. So even though he did go public with that information, it's hard to make it fit together in your head because you do see this clean-cut guy and to hear the stories that he was saying about his youth and his past alcohol and substance use abuse. It is hard to reconcile those two images in your mind. So I could see why the interviewer would be like, oh, well, like this is an interesting departure from Finn Hudson, who we're so used to seeing you play.
Yeah. I also wonder, as Finn Hudson, what fulfillment or triggers were present for him because he left school at 16. And in Canada, you typically graduate around 18, which is similar here in the US. So I have to wonder, like, did this help him fulfill anything? Did it trigger anything? We may never know because I don't have any interviews or anything like that. But when I break down that human side of him, it makes me wonder. I mean, leaving school at 16, that's early. It's young.
But he wasn't really in school, at least physically, because we do learn that because of his drug use and truancy, he went to 16 different schools in the time in this era of his life. So the fact that he even graduated at all was a feat in and of itself.
I don't know what he ended up graduating with or not. Obviously, the Canadian school system, a little bit different, but I don't know if he ended up getting the equivalent of a diploma or what he ended up getting there. But again, it just kind of made me think of what that may have brought up for him. But I mean, he did seem to enjoy the role despite it being a lot of pressure, as we discussed on the Price's Glee docufiles episode. On top of playing a high school student, we've mentioned this student was a quarterback, an athlete. Cory himself was athletic. This is noted in his autopsy. And just a few days before he passed, he was on a 4-day hike across the southwest coast of British Columbia. I'm sure it was gorgeous, but this hike is not for somebody who's not a seasoned hiker. It's called the Juan de Fuca Marine Trail. It is just under 30 miles. It's 47 kilometers. It is described as rugged and not for somebody who is not seasoned. So for him to just go out, which I believe was solo, part of me wonders, like, what was he searching for? But also part of me is like, wow, he really was athletic.
All you have to do is look at him and you can see that he's at least physically fit. Like, who knows what's going on under the surface, but it's no surprise to me from seeing pictures of him, from seeing him perform, that he was physically up to the challenge. Something that is probably the most discussed aspect of Cory's life, though, at least of this time, is his relationship with Lea Michele, his co-star on Glee, Miss Rachel Berry.
You can't talk about one without the other.
No, you can't. Now, obviously, they started working together in 2009 at the start of Glee, but they didn't exactly get together at that time, at least officially, because it turns out Lea Michele was dating someone else at the time by the name of
Theo Stockman.
Theo Stockman, yes. There was talk about him being jealous of her kissing Cory on the show, but she played it off saying, like, my boyfriend's an actor as well. He understands. Well, it turns out he had something to be jealous about because, like, it wasn't long after they broke up that Cory and Lea became official.
She and Theo broke up in 2011. So that allowed the two, Lea and Cory, to get together by somewhere in the middle of 2012.
And after that, they became virtually inseparable. They were always together, on screen and off screen.
And when you see them together, like, it feels meant to be. You know, like, you look at them and you just go, oh, yeah. And I do want to place respect on Leah's current marriage and the family she has built. This is just in that time. You look and you go, wow, like, what a couple. Like, you just can't help but look at these two beautiful people. It just seems so, I know you can only tell so much from a picture, but, you know, there's always an arm around the other or a hand on the knee and just like this physical touch. And it almost looks like he's about to say something a lot. Like, it just seems so sweet and meant to be for that time.
It does seem genuine and surprisingly normal for the life that they were living at the time, because we have to remember they were huge at this time, celebrity-wise. Glee was a show that was being talked about by everyone. So the fact that the two primary characters in this ensemble cast were together in real life it was like a dream come true for a lot of fans.
It was a PR dream come true as well. I'm so
No,
sure.
totally.
There's this one picture I want to mention where Leah's in this gorgeous, like hot pink gown. She's smiling, looks to be like I was kind of mentioning. They always look like they were like talking and interacting. She looks to be like mid-laugh, giggle, word. And he's blinking, but you can tell he's looking at his girl and he's got his he's holding one of her hands. It almost looks like he's about to like spin her, that he just looks so happy to be near this gorgeous girl that he feels like, wow, she's here at this awards ceremony with me. And I can't get enough of it. And I feel like that's what people were feeling at that time, because again, Glee was going on. This is the thick of Glee. This is the growth of Glee. It definitely became a part of the show for sure. And there's also a really just absolutely beautiful quote from Leah. And I also would like to read that. He makes me feel like I can do anything. For the first time in my life, I feel really, really settled and happy. I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. I can almost hear her saying that, by the way. I just feel like if that's how she was feeling then and how we're feeling about this now, reminiscing, again, at the time, this was absolutely huge. But it wasn't not overshadowed, unfortunately, by his addiction, because not long after they got together, within about a year, he was back in rehab. Look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using Earnin. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with Earnin, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in The Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
Eczema is unpredictable, but you can flare less with Ebglyss, a once-monthly treatment for moderate to severe eczema. After an initial 4-month or longer dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Introducing Taco Bell's new jalapeno citrus salsa. With bright citrus, real red jalapenos, guajillo chiles. Usually, you add sauce to the food, but when the sauce is this good, the food is just there to get the sauce to your mouth. That rolled quesadilla, not a rolled quesadilla anymore. Now it's a sauce shovel. Taco Bell's jalapeno citrus salsa. Get it with any item on the Cantina chicken menu while it's here. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only. While supplies last. Contact store for availability.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
This episode is brought to you by Palmolive. Family time isn't just the big moments. It's weeknight dinners, sitting around the table, everyone talking all at once. So when the plates are empty and the sink is full, use Palmolive Ultra. Palmolive's most powerful formula removes up to 99.9% of grease, leaving your dishes sparkling clean. And the new convenient pump makes cleaning even easier, so you can spend less time tackling dishes and more time together. Shop now at palmolive.com.
According to the documentary that Paige and I watched as part of our research called Autopsy: The Last Days of Cory Monteith, it does address the fact that he had fallen back into his heroin addiction at least a year prior to his rehab stint. And that's something that I was unaware of, at least as a viewer of the show. I didn't see a difference in his performance, but at least according to the people that knew him, they were starting to see it in his behaviors on and off set.
Yeah.
They were starting to realize something was going on, something was amiss.
Yeah, they were smelling alcohol on his breath. They were concerned with certain behaviors. He was late to set. And Ryan Murphy finally calls him in and they have a discussion and he, expresses his concern and he actually pulls him from the rest of season 4, which there wasn't much left of season 4 to film.
I mean, 2 episodes is 2 episodes without one of the biggest characters on the show. So It was notable.
Definitely not an easy decision from the creative and filmmaking perspective. I mean, when Ryan Murphy loves you, he loves you. We know this about people he likes working with. And I think that was Cory. So Cory did go to rehab, took care of himself, and he did find clarity in those moments. And there were tweets that kind of show that he was feeling at the end of March, April, kind of on top of the world, ready to tackle it again and do this. But I worry for me that this mechanic role was maybe too dark and too real for him. Because again, this role that he played in Mechanic was a leading role and had to do with a heroin addict. And it was dark and almost involved, his acting coach talks about, method acting. Even though there were small amounts of heroin in his system, for example, in the autopsy, it makes me wonder how much that did affect and bring up those moments and make it hard to stay in recovery. And there is a reason why they call it recovery and don't call it recovered, because it's an everyday 24/7 process when you are enduring addiction. And I think that this role may have brought some things up that, unfortunately, on top of the things that addiction brings up day to day for Cory. And that's why maybe we were using at a lower level, but nonetheless still using and struggling. And that's what brings us to what happened in July of 2013 when he was found deceased on the floor of his hotel room at the Fairmont Pacific Rim Hotel in downtown Vancouver with small amounts of heroin and small amount of alcohol nonetheless in his system. But unfortunately, it was a lethal mix. Without being a medical personnel, but to describe it for context, it messed with breathing and the ability for his body to pump oxygen-rich blood throughout. And that ultimately caused his demise. And when you are also an addict and you go to use again, it is easy to misjudge the amount your body can tolerate. And there are a lot of things that go into it. But ultimately, it wasn't alcohol. There wasn't enough in that to cause his death. It wasn't heroin. There wasn't enough of that to cause his death, but it was the two together. And I think we understand that in 2026, that it's not always one drug. It can often be the mix, the cocktail that causes death.
Right. The mix. Something that the medical examiner mentioned in that documentary we watched is, yes, the amount of heroin wasn't enough. Yes, the amount of alcohol wasn't enough, but the combination and the fact that he had just been released from rehab 11 weeks prior. So he had spent 28 days in rehab after he had left the Glee set, and he left sober. He was supposedly sober for those next 11 weeks. And when he went to use again, this is at the estimation of the medical examiner, based on his experience and his evaluation of the autopsy results and every toxicology report, that he may have injected an amount that he had been used to prior to rehab, and his body had become unfamiliar with that level. Like his tolerance had lowered in that time. And as a result, it just was too much for his body to handle.
Right. His body, on top of that, was already depressed from the use of alcohol, which was only 0.13 milligrams percent. So very low percentage of alcohol was found in his body. But nonetheless, it was in a depressed state. So we add in the heroin and the heart just couldn't pump the blood with large enough oxygen in it. Again, not coming from any type of medical expertise, but this is the idea of what was explained by the medical examiner.
Now, as we discussed in The Price of Glee, this unexpected, tragic end to Cory's life was a shock to everyone, not only his cast members, his loved ones, but also to the public. Everyone couldn't believe that this had happened. He was only 31 years old. And there's something particularly heartbreaking about this whole situation when you think in terms of his relationship with Lea Michele. They never got to see where their relationship would go. We never got to see it evolve. We never got to see if they would get married, have kids, break up. We never got to see how it would naturally progress. And I think that's something that everyone could sense from the devastation that they realized Lea was experiencing. And something we talked about when we covered last week's documentary, The Price of Glee, is that Ryan Murphy went to Lea and asked her, all right, what would you like to do about the show? Because he understood that while this was an ensemble cast, her and Finn, Cory, were the heart of the story. And he didn't want to go on without getting her take on what they should do. And so she was given a couple of options. She was given the option to end production forever. She was given the option to have a hiatus and come back in the new year. And then the third option, which is what she chose, was to take a 2-week break and return to filming as soon as possible. That's what she chose. She chose that because, at least in her words from interviews that she's given since then, is a lot of people depended on this job, and she didn't want to be the reason for people not being able to feed their families, not being able to pay their rent. And what we discussed last week was the fact that she was sort of villainized by the documentary filmmakers of that documentary for making that choice. And there's an article from In Style where she's asked about the decision that she made and how her relationships with the cast and crew were affected by Cory's death. And so she's asked if her relationships with these other cast members, if it fared well in the wake of Cory's death, and asked if they all banded together. And she says no. And here's a quote from Lea about that. She says, I think it really fractured so much. For me, it was so hard. I completely broke. I was in a one-track mind of trying to do my job. It was way too much to try and process.
I'm led to believe that it would have been a mixed bag of how cast and crew felt about the decision. So she was probably damned if she did, damned if she didn't sort of situation. I don't think there was a proper right answer for everybody.
No, it's not like there's a handbook to do on what happens when one of the primary characters passes away unexpectedly. No one knew what to do.
Yeah. Who's also your boyfriend. I think she was always going to be judged for whatever that decision was. And let's be real, women with power are constantly judged. And she had a lot of power in that moment. Ryan gave her a lot of power.
And kudos to him for that. I feel like it was the right call to at least gauge how she was feeling with this, because I can't imagine what that must have felt like to go on set and film the episode The Quarterback, which both you and I watched for this coverage today.
I did fail at watching that. I was not able to make time, but I have been thinking about just rewatching Glee as a whole, at least the first 4 or 5 seasons. That's where I was also not as worried as some of the other important research, but I do remember the episode. I have seen it and oh my gosh.
Not a big deal because, I was going to bring it up anyway.
Right. We might need to remind listeners that didn't listen to DocuFiles that Quarterback is the first episode that they filmed without Cory, that without a cause of death revolved around Finn's apparent death within the show.
Mm-hmm. It is dedicated to Cory at the end. But what I wanted to bring up when I watched it was the raw emotions of everyone on screen are palpable. You can feel the heartbreak through the screen. And, sometimes you watch an show on TV, a movie on TV, and you understand that the characters are upset because, that's what the story calls for. They're doing their best to pantomime emotions. Yes, they were acting, but these were real emotions. When they were talking about Finn, each giving their speeches, each singing their songs in tribute to him, it was heartbreaking. You can see people sitting in the audience as they're watching their classmates perform with tears in their eyes, red noses, lumps in their throat. I mean, you feel their heartbreak. And there was one scene where his stepmom, because remember, Kurt and Finn's parents get married because they were both single parents. And so Kurt and Finn eventually become stepbrothers. And there's this moment at their home where they're cleaning up Finn's room. And the characters just break down, and you can tell that it was just so fresh and raw for these characters. And you can feel it from Leah as well when she appears for maybe 2 minutes at the end of the episode. And this whole time you're, as the audience, wondering if she's going to show up, and she does. And when she's talking about Finn, which really she's talking about Cory, all the words she says, like you can hear her voice cracking. You can see the emotion. You can see when you're trying to smile through tears, but you're just so sad and your face gives away to a frown. That is such an uncontrolled, minute movement. That's something that probably Meryl Streep wouldn't even be able to control. But you see it on Leah's face as she's talking about Finn, and you just know she's fighting to get through that scene. It is heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah. What an outlet they were given with that episode to grieve and be raw and have that safe space of scene work, though, to keep within a boundary that helps them feel safe as well. It really is just a tragic loss. I mean, this is the kind of guy that Cory was. He definitely did not want to pass young. He cared about his life. There are quotes about him looking forward to marriage and a family. But another quote of his is, "Be nice to everyone. Always smile and appreciate things because it could all be gone tomorrow." And I just think man, is that so real within his life story.
It's almost eerie that he wrote that. And he really did live by that, because everyone that came into contact with him and is asked to talk about him has nothing but nice things to say about him. And I think that truly is a testament to his character and to the person that he was. I mean, even Leah Michelle, not to keep bringing it back and harping on their relationship, but it was such a big part of their life and his life, especially at the end. Now, Leah does post in honor of Cory's death anniversary every so often, especially on big anniversaries. The last big one was the 10-year one in 2023. And she posted a black and white photo of her hugging Cory. She wrote, "Hey, you, 10 years. It feels like only yesterday that you were here and yet a million years ago all at the same time. I hold all of our memories in my heart where they will stay safe and never forgotten. We miss you every day and will never forget the light you brought to us all. I miss you, big guy. I hope you found Taylor up there and are playing the drums together."
Taylor Hawkins being the drummer of the Foo Fighters, who passed in March of 2022. Anyways, what an amazing legacy with his work, especially on Glee, Cory has left. We will, of course, be back next week with another episode of Tragic Hollywood. But until then, make sure to follow us on all of our socials at the Murder Diaries Pod, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube.
Don't forget, our schedule is Mondays, Tragic Hollywood, Tuesdays, Docufiles, and Thursdays, a true crime case that needs your attention. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
Look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using EarnIn. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with EarnIn, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in The Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
Athletic Brewing Company crafts award-winning non-alcoholic beers for those who want to be part of every round. With over 185 flavor awards, they're exceptional NA beers that fit your lifestyle and any social occasion. Summer's full of good times, and Athletic fits right in. Go to athleticbrewing.com to have brews delivered to your door, or find them at a bar, restaurant, or store near you. Near beer. Athletic Brewing Company. Fit for all times.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Google Health. Stop chasing someone else's definition of health. What matters is what's healthy for you. Google Health offers a new kind of coach built with Gemini for effortless tracking, sleep insights, and holistic coaching tailored to you. Visit googlestore.com to learn more and start a new relationship with your health. Requires Google account, Google Health app, internet, and Google Health premium subscription. Features subject to change. Availability and results vary. Not intended for medical purposes. Works independently of Gemini apps. Check responses for accuracy.